Not you trying to be more American than the American.
Why are you faking your accent?
It's not even your country for real.
They so funny. They think if they play American enough, they will be
You're
American.
actually such a wannabe.
Y'all, we are in mourning. Hence the outfit. Honestly, if you're not watching this episode, you should. But we are currently mourning all of the unnamed trauma that we have experienced throughout our childhood till date. I may have my glasses on, but I'm being so dead ass right now. I'm gonna take off my glasses now so you guys know how dead ass I am. But no, today's episode I really wanted to speak on just on name trauma because like I've been going through TikTok and Twitter and Instagram. No, not Twitter, but like Instagram and TikTok. And I've just been seeing so much discourse on just like traumas that like people have experienced when they were younger and how it is manifesting in their current life right now, like in their like older years right now. And oh my gosh, you guys, like some of these stories are so heartbreaking. Some of these stories are so heartbreaking. And I think like speaking on trauma is such a huge, very delicate conversation in my opinion. And I won't be speaking on traumas like car accidents, deaths, tragic events, assault. I'm not speaking on those kind of traumas. I'm speaking on traumas that didn't seem like trauma, the traumas that you didn't classify as trauma, and now you don't even realize that it is affecting how you operate as a human being in your adult years. So, honestly, this episode is for everyone. This episode is for every immigrant who needs to be the best because their parents, spent their last penny for them to be the best. This episode is for all the African kids out there who are just shit, okay? Constantly traumatized, all right? This is for all the kids from communist cultures where they have no other option but to be great. And hence, they have no room to feel anything besides greatness. Okay? This episode is for anyone who has managed to make it abroad and has, struggled with being abroad and been told that at least you should be happy that you're here. This episode is for anyone who has moved back home and doesn't know what the heck they're doing and doesn't know who to talk to about it because they feel that at this age they should kind of have their life figured out. But unfortunately, they don't. They were not part of the lucky people that God chose to become lawyers, doctors, engineers. They just barely you guys, so ignore that. But yeah, this is who this episode is dedicated to, right? And I just want us to like kind of sit down and just kind of like analyze like what the fuck we have become because of the traumas we experienced in our childhood. So I think I want to start off with just defining this trauma. I mean, trauma is trauma, but like this specific unnamed trauma is just that kind of trauma that like, maybe you grew up with parents who used to yell at you, parents who used to compare you to other kids, parents who used to say, so all your mates are getting prize and you, like on prize giving day, all your mates are getting prize and you didn't even get one prize. Did they have 2 years that they're getting prize? Yeah. The trauma where you can't even speak up for yourself, like you're not comfortable enough to speak up for yourself because you're going to be judged, you're going to be looked down on. I think for me it's like double homicide because I'm the first daughter, I'm the first child, I'm the first grandchild, so there's a lot of expectation coming out of me, okay? And unfortunately I haven't been able to meet the expectation because I'm still trying to figure out WTF I want to do with my life. Every day I feel like I have mental breakdowns trying to figure out what I want to do with myself. On a constant, I am reinventing myself. And, being from the culture I am, that is not necessarily... They're not clapping for you, okay? They're just like get it together, make some money. Like, it is time for you to move out of your father's house, don't you think? And I'm not here to come and talk down whatever the hell. See, I have come to realize that, people are products of their nature and nurture. And, at the end of the day, those who are, worried will be worried. and it's understandable to be nervous for, the kid who don't know what the fuck she's trying to do with her life. So that's what I'm gonna say on that matter. But yeah, today's episode, I just really, really wanted to kind of get into the nitty gritty when it comes to, this kind of trauma, because I feel like so many people are going through it, and I don't think it's like spoken enough. But for me, how this trauma has shown up, it's shown up in so many ways. But I think like the one that has been like the most recent, I wouldn't say the most recent, but like the one that comes to mind that's like PG is I had this one auntie that would just like constantly like just complain about everything about me. You know, I would look at myself in the mirror too much. She's like, Benny, you're so vain. Like, don't you know that like you're a child of God? Blah 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 blah. I'm like, and my constant response to this is, if not me, then who? You know what I mean? Like, if not me, who is going to do it? Who am I going to get the validation from? Who am I going to seek this validation from? I feel like if I'm going to seek validation from anyone, it should be myself first. But like, it wouldn't hurt me at first. But sometimes like when you're trying to do something, you're trying to look a different way, you're trying to give off a certain aesthetic, and then somebody's just like in your ear nagging constantly, nagging. Bro, shut the fuck up. Like, let me do it and let me say that it's ugly. Okay, let me do it and let me say that it's ugly. You know what I mean? And for me, it didn't. I just like stopped like reaching out to this person. There's some people here who might not know how to respond to such things like this, and they just immediately be like, okay. And that's where people pleasing comes in. You're probably wondering like, why are you such a people pleaser now? Not knowing that when you were younger, to avoid conflicts, you just did as people said, and now it has become such a huge issue for you to kind of have your own thoughts and do your own thing without the fear of people not liking you, or the fear of people, having things to say. So I've noticed that people have come to normalize the hurt, right? People will say very hurtful things. Like, I on the pod, I had a guest who had come on and said, she really struggled with, living in the US and like living in a white city, and going to school with all white people and not having anybody who looked like her. Like, she really struggled with that, right? And she had gone to meet her parents and tell her parents, and they were like immediately like, you should be grateful that you have this opportunity. And honestly, that really triggers me, because like, never once did I say I wasn't grateful, if that makes sense. Like, never once did I say I wasn't grateful. I'm just not seeing anyone who looks like me. I just don't see anyone who I could interact with, like they don't see, I feel like they don't listen to what you're saying. It's just immediately you should be grateful, immediately thank God, immediately. And I think the way people are able to just immediately dismiss the feelings and focus more on just like the aftermath, or like want to so much focus on you just being okay, like nobody cares about how you feel, just be okay, is very, very sad and unfortunate. And again, it comes back to nature and nurture. That is how they were raised, that is how like life is, and there's not really much you could do. Like, you cannot expect people to change and be a certain type of way just because you need them to be. And I think when it comes to this conversation with trying to make people understand from your POV, if the person is not giving what you need them to give, it's okay. Like, there's actually really nothing you could do. You just need to arrange yourself accordingly and keep it pushing, right? For my case, I was really struggling with my corporate job. And this is like, I'm saying this because like I've never had to work under somebody, so it was really different for me, and I would not complain, but I would have conversations with my mom, and she would be like immediately like, Ben, just be grateful that you have this opportunity. There's so many people that don't have this opportunity, and I had to sit down and talk to her, and I'm like, never once did I say I wasn't grateful for this opportunity. I've been praying for this opportunity my whole life. Like, right out of college, I was praying for this opportunity. Of course, I am grateful. I'm just not used to this. So I'm going to have complaints, I'm going to have questions, I'm going to have thoughts, I'm going to have so many things. And I had to tell her, like, just immediately dismissing my feeling really hurts me. Like, it really makes me feel like my feelings aren't valid and like my conversation isn't worth it, right? And like I said, my mom was quite understanding of the situation, but also, like, she's worked corporate her whole life, so like, and she has a creative kid who is in corporate. Like, there's just so many moving parts, and she's just trying to figure out, like, how to navigate. And I could understand that, but going back to, like, childhood, and just certain things that you see in your childhood, certain things that you experience in childhood, you see um just relationships with your parents, and you grow up as an adult, and you're just like, bro, like, I could never see myself in a relationship, I don't want to have kids, and then the question comes up, like, why, like, being in a marriage is so beautiful, and being, I just like, babes, like, I literally saw how horrifying to be wed to someone is. Why would I want to go through that? I mean, there's so many things that we see when we're younger that, like, we don't necessarily feel anything, like, it doesn't register, like, we don't even, like, we're so desensitized to the trauma that we don't even realize what is happening. Like, you're in a situation where your parents are arguing, and you have to come in and be the mediator, and then certain statements are being thrown around, talking about, just certain statements are being thrown around, and then you're like 10 years old, horrified, scared out of your mind, forced to be in a conversation you don't need to be in at a certain age, and you have to pick a side at 10 years old. 10 years old, how do you navigate that? How do you try and understand that? How do you grow up and say you want to get into a healthy relationship and meet someone without the fear of, oh my gosh, like, what if we fight? What if, I think for me, that's my biggest fear. Like, I don't just, I love my parents to death, okay? But, like, there's just certain things that I wouldn't not want to replicate. And if I fear or I see those things in myself, I will be horrified for myself. Like, I would be so scared for myself. And um that's just like one scenario out of many. The other scenario is not even like physical abuse, more so like emotional abuse. Just always nagging, always bringing people down, always like looking for a way to, you might say, like, oh, this is how I communicate, but like, your way of communication is bringing somebody else down. And I just feel like you grow up to be so desensitized to that you'll be able to take whatever people throw at you. Talking about some ish resilience and suffering are so masked to me. Like, it's actually insane, because we tend to mask resilience with suffering, and it's just like, why do I have to suffer so much? Why do I have to be put down so much to know that I'm a resilient person? That's just like, why do I have to be traumatized constantly, be in a constant state of fear, be in a constant state of anxiety, be in a constant state of, oh my gosh, like, I don't know if I'm doing the right thing, I don't know if this person is going to like what I'm doing, I don't know how I'm going to exist, just to be fucking resilient. I feel like that is just crap, in my opinion, like, the absolute crap. I just, no. You can be resilient without being traumatized. You can be resilient without being torn down. You can be resilient without being nagged. You can be resilient without, just negativity. My gosh, like, please, I actually cannot, like, for me, like, when people say, like, oh, I'm resilient, and I'm like, okay, like, what makes you resilient? Like, what have you done? Do you have grit? They're like, no, like, I was just like, what I went through in high school, what I went through in secondary school, what I went through in just as a young child, that makes me resilient. That's no, baby, you need therapy. No, you're unwell. And it's okay. Like, you need therapy. You need to fix your insides, because the truth is, you might think you're resilient, but the truth is, you are so traumatized, you don't even realize you have been traumatized. And I'm so sorry that you had to go through that. I truly am. I truly, truly am. But I feel like we need to stop normalizing hurting people. Oh my gosh. And one narrative I cannot stand is when people say, I went through it when I was your age, so it's not a big deal. Or like, We all go through it. Everybody goes through it. Everybody's not me. Everybody's not you. Everybody's not we. Everybody's not them. What do you mean just because you went through it? And honestly, that was such like the catchphrase in high school. You would get bullied just because the person bullying you also got bullied. Are we all okay in the building? Obviously not. This is what I mean that we all need therapy, because what do you mean because you suffered? I have to suffer so that your suffering could be validated from my suffering. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. That is insane. Another thing that is some sort of trauma is the incessant need to earn love. Incessant need to, oh my gosh, like I can't like, honestly, these stories I saw, the articles I read on this, just like heartbreaking. Absolutely heartbreaking. And this is other people's experience. Like, you're learning from these people and you're like, fuck, like shit, like, there was this one story that I had heard, like, you know, um, like, as African kids, you like, I feel like there is this need or this desire to like please your parents and to, you know, be the best for your parents because they've sacrificed so much, they've given up so much for you. But then it gets to a point where it's like nothing's ever enough and you're constantly fighting to be approved by your parents. And that is scary. You're constantly fighting to be approved. You're constantly fighting for validation from your parents, and they're not giving it to you because maybe they're not used to validating, but they do love you, but they just cannot validate you. And then you grow up to constantly seek validation out and feel like you need to overwork yourself. You need to do the absolute most just to feel like you've earned where you're at. I just like that breaks my heart. And then how this is translated into like other aspects of your life is you feel like you are, maybe you're doing your best as a mom, and there's just certain sacrifices you have to make. And because of that, you may have to like leave your kids for long periods of time, or you have to, not just be present enough in your kid's life, and then you just immediately assume that because of that, like, you're a failure as a mother, and it's just like you're not, like, you're doing the best that you could do with the circumstances that you are currently living in. And honestly, like, just these ideas, just these stories are just so heartbreaking to see. These stories are just like, damn, like, all of these things probably stem from childhood. For the most part, stem from childhood. You've become so desensitized to the whole situation that you can't even process like what is happening, what's going on. And it's like, damn, like, you're really a people pleaser because you always wanted to please mommy and daddy. Like, you are, struggling with relationships because you never saw a healthy relationship growing up. You are feeling anxiety and depression because you never felt safe in your childhood years. You stay in an abusive relationship because that's what you saw when you were being raised, and it's your normal. So what do you mean I should get out of a relationship if somebody is harming me? No, my mommy did that to my dad, my daddy did that to my mommy, so like, it's just the cycle. you know I feel like, my opinion, like, I feel because of this and because of like this whole conversation, I feel like I'm very, very like understanding of people and why people act this certain way. And I'm just like, in my head, I'm like, baby, what happened in your childhood? Who traumatized you in your childhood? Let me know. And I mean, there is certain trauma that I could understand. I could be like, okay, like, we could work through this. We could, you know we could build a friendship, we could build something more. And there's just other trauma that, like, the damage is just too much, and me, putting myself into your world could damage my world. Because baby, I'm traumatized too. You know what I mean? Like, we are traumatized, but like, you have to match trauma for trauma. And when the trauma is more than yours, or the trauma is less than yours, like, there's only so much you can manage. There's only so much you could take. There's only so much you could work with. You know what I mean? And I think it's okay to kind of admit that, there's just certain things that you cannot take for your mental health and how you are processing your trauma and how you're managing your trauma. But like, I think the main purpose of this episode is just for us to kind of just understand some of the reasons why we act the way that we act, and how it is kind of tied to our childhood, and how desensitized we've been to certain parts of our childhood. And just like being more self-aware. I'm always for self-awareness, and I feel like for me, um I'm constantly in dire need to be more self-aware. And yeah, I've learned so much with like just like how I operate now as an adult compared to how I was when I was younger, why I did the things I did when I was younger, why I do the things I do now as an adult, how I'm moving through life, how I'm navigating life, especially now that I'm so in between life period. Like, I'm kind of just in this, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing, and time is passing me, but like I'm still young, but I'm also not so young. I'm trying to find myself because like I refuse to be stuck in something that I never wanted to be in the first place, so kind of in that space and just navigating all this. I'm very, very like, yeah, self-awareness. Like, I'm always up for self-awareness. But yeah, I just really wanted this episode to kind of just be super reflective, to just kind of like maybe process, analyze. We're getting closer to the end of the year. Just process, analyze, like, why do you act the way you act? Why do you do the things that you do? What triggers some of the things that you do? Like, I get anxiety, and honestly, I'm just triggered by existing. Yeah, that's like a deeper conversation for another day. But I mean, I've put things in place, and I created routines for myself to kind of just manage my anxiety and manage my stress. So since we're getting closer to the end of the day, I think like this is a very like reflective episode, and I hope that's how it reflects. And I really hope that like you resonated with this episode. If you have any like you want to continue the conversation in the group chat, not the group chat, but like if you want to continue the conversation in the comments, please do so. I really do want to talk about this and unnamed traumas that we've all experienced. I think like this is something, or this is a conversation that just needs to be more open-minded, and less of putting blame on particular people, and more so like working towards how to recover from the trauma. I think if you are more focused on recovering from trauma and less focused on the people who cause the trauma, you heal more, because you have so much anger tied to the people who cause you the trauma, instead of putting that anger to falling more in love with yourself and resolving this trauma to become a better person. And I think that was the purpose of my episode. This is not to like say, yes, the people who caused me trauma, fuck them, blah blah blah. No, this is more so to kind of understand why you act the way that you act, and like how you can be better, instead of blaming people. You are grown. You cannot keep blaming people for the rest of your life. I'm so sorry. Like, you can't. So this episode is kind of just self-awareness episode, wake up type of episode. But anyway, that's a wrap on today's episode. I really, really hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I loved it. I feel like this is quite different for me, but yeah, you guys, make sure if you have any dilemmas, any thoughts, any questions, definitely comment down in the comments. If it's more personal, you want to share your story, you want to share whatever you want to share. If you're pissed at somebody, if you want to talk shit, you want anything you want, send it to me on the Wanna Be hotline. Like I mentioned, the Wanna Be hotline is a form. It's not like you're not gonna call me. Yeah. But yeah, also don't forget to give this episode or this show 5 stars. If you have any other stars besides 5, I love you, but keep them to yourself. Yeah, you guys, and I'll see you guys next week. Pinky promise. Okay. Oh, and if you are new here, hi. Thank you guys for sticking with me. I'm Biani, the host of Wanna Be Americana, podcast for outsiders by an outsider. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, follow us on all platforms: YouTube, IG, TikTok. We everywhere, baby. Okay, and if you're bored, you need something to listen to, Spotify, Apple, we are on all those platforms as well. Anyways, you guys, I love you guys. I will chat to you guys next week.